There are seasons in every relationship when love feels uneven. One partner loses a job. One faces a health crisis. One is overwhelmed by family obligations. One sinks into anxiety or burnout. Suddenly, the balance that once felt natural begins to tilt. One person is carrying more, emotionally, financially, practically, and this is where love is tested in a very quiet way. Not by betrayal, not by dramatic conflict, but by imbalance. In easy seasons, reciprocity flows effortlessly. You give, I give. You support, I support. It feels mutual, organic. But difficult seasons disrupt that symmetry. One partner may not have the capacity to contribute equally for a time. The danger is not the imbalance itself. The danger is the story we attach to it. If you begin to tell yourself, I'm doing everything, or they're not showing up for me, resentment starts to take root. It rarely announces itself loudly. It grows subtly, in sighs, in sarcasm, in exhaustion that feels invisible. Supporting a partner through hardship requires generosity, but generosity without acknowledgement becomes depletion. This is why loving in difficult seasons is not about martyrdom. It is about conscious support. When your partner is struggling, your instinct may be to overfunction. You take over responsibilities, you solve problems, you become the stable one, and often this is necessary, but if it continues without communication, a quiet hierarchy can form. The strong one and the struggling one. Over time, that dynamic can distort intimacy. The partner who is giving more may begin to feel superior or unappreciated. The partner who is struggling may feel guilty or diminished. Neither feels fully equal. The key is not to avoid imbalance because life guarantees it, but to avoid keeping score. Scorekeeping is the silent killer of generosity. When you mentally log every sacrifice, I paid for this, I handled that, I stayed up all night, support becomes transactional. You may never say it out loud, but the emotional ledger exists, and relationships cannot thrive under constant accounting. This does not mean ignoring your limits. It means distinguishing between temporary asymmetry and permanent inequity. In difficult seasons, love asks for elasticity. Sometimes you stretch more. Sometimes your partner stretches more. The question is whether both of you trust that the stretching will not be exploited. Trust transforms imbalance into teamwork. Without trust, imbalance feels like burden. It is also essential to communicate openly about capacity. If you are carrying more, say so gently. Not as accusation, but as transparency. I want to support you, but I'm feeling stretched too. This invites collaboration rather than resentment. And if you are the one struggling, acknowledge the weight your partner is carrying. Even if you cannot reciprocate fully, appreciation matters. A simple recognition, I see how much you're doing, protects dignity on both sides. Difficult seasons often challenge identity. The partner who loses a job may feel less competent. The one facing illness may feel less desirable. The one overwhelmed by stress may feel emotionally unavailable. During these times, practical support is important, but emotional affirmation is essential. Remind each other that the season does not define the person. It is easy to conflate behavior with character when stress lingers. But loving well means remembering that the irritability, withdrawal, or fatigue you see is often the surface of something deeper: fear, shame, grief. Supporting without keeping score also requires self-awareness. Are you giving because you choose to, or because you fear what will happen if you don't? Are you helping from love or from control? Sometimes overfunctioning masks anxiety. It feels safer to take over than to sit with uncertainty. But partnership is not about rescuing, it is about standing beside. There will be moments when you feel tired. That is human. Loving in hard seasons does not mean you never feel frustration. It means you process it responsibly, without turning your partner's vulnerability into ammunition. It also means recognizing that roles will reverse. The one who is strong today may be fragile tomorrow. The one who carries now may need carrying later. Relationships are long enough to contain multiple reversals. When couples understand this, they relax into flexibility. They stop demanding perfect equality in every moment. They begin to see themselves as a unit navigating external pressure together, and that perspective shifts everything. Instead of me versus you, it becomes us versus the season. So when love feels uneven, resist the urge to measure, resist the instinct to tally. Instead ask, are we moving through this together? Are we communicating honestly about our capacity? Are we preserving each other's dignity? Because difficult seasons are not tests of who gives more. They are opportunities to prove that love is not a contract of equal exchange, but a commitment to mutual care, even when the scales temporarily tip. One of the most important skills in loving your partner through difficult seasons is the ability to separate the person from the season. When stress enters a relationship, behavior changes. The attentive partner becomes distracted. The playful partner becomes serious. The patient partner becomes irritable. The affectionate partner becomes withdrawn. And if we are not careful, we begin to confuse adaptation with identity. We start to think, you've changed, when what is often true is, you're under pressure. Difficult seasons compress people. When someone is navigating grief, financial anxiety, burnout, or health concerns, their nervous system shifts into survival mode. In survival mode, access to tenderness, humor, and spontaneity decreases. Irritability increases. Emotional bandwidth shrinks. This does not mean love has disappeared. It means capacity has been reduced. But from the outside, reduced capacity can feel like rejection. When your partner withdraws, you may interpret it as disinterest. When they snap, you may interpret it as disrespect. When they forget small gestures, you may interpret it as indifference. The instinct is to personalize, and personalization is understandable. We experience our partner's behavior directly. It impacts us. But loving in difficult seasons requires perspective. It requires asking, is this who they are? Or is this what they're carrying? That distinction changes how you respond. If you interpret stress behavior as character failure, you move toward criticism. If you interpret it as coping strain, you move toward compassion. Compassion does not excuse harmful behavior. Boundaries still matter. But compassion adjusts tone. Instead of saying, you're always so negative, you might say, you seem overwhelmed lately. Instead of saying, you don't care anymore, you might ask, are you feeling distant from everything right now? These subtle shifts prevent escalation. In hard seasons, couples often enter a cycle of misinterpretation. One partner withdraws because they feel inadequate. The other pursues because they feel disconnected. The more one pulls away, the more the other pushes. Soon the original stressor is no longer the main problem. The relational tension is. Separating the person from the season interrupts this cycle. It allows you to see the fear beneath the frustration, the shame beneath the silence, the exhaustion beneath the irritability. Stress distorts behavior, but it does not define character. This perspective also protects memory. When you are in a prolonged, difficult season, it is easy to forget who your partner is outside of it. You may start to believe that this tense, distant version is the real one, but relationships are long enough to contain multiple versions of each other. Who someone is under pressure is one expression, not the entirety of their identity. Holding on to a broader view of your partner, remembering their warmth, their humor, their generosity, helps you avoid reducing them to their current struggle. At the same time, separating the person from the season does not mean minimizing your own experience. If their stress is spilling over into hurtful patterns, that must be addressed. Compassion is not self-erasure. You can say, I know you're under a lot of pressure, and I want to support you. But when you speak to me that way, it hurts. This approach acknowledges context without tolerating harm. Difficult seasons also invite you to ask a deeper question. What is my partner afraid of right now? Often, what looks like anger is fear of failure. What looks like withdrawal is fear of being a burden. What looks like control is fear of losing stability. When you respond to the fear instead of the surface behavior, intimacy deepens. There is also something profoundly bonding about being witnessed in a hard season without being judged by it. When your partner sees your worst week, your lowest mood, your most insecure moment, and still treats you as fundamentally worthy, trust expands. And that trust becomes the foundation for resilience. The ability to say, this is a hard chapter, not a broken relationship, prevents panic. It slows down catastrophic thinking. It allows you both to orient toward the future instead of reacting only to the present discomfort. Of course, not every difficult season is temporary. Some challenges are chronic, some stressors linger, but even then, separating the person from the condition prevents you from collapsing the entire relationship into the hardship. You begin to relate to your partner as someone navigating difficulty, not someone embodying it. And that subtle shift protects respect. When you can look at your partner in the middle of their struggle and think, this is not you at your best, but I know who you are, you create space for recovery, because people tend to rise toward the way they are seen. So the next time tension flares in a difficult season, pause before concluding that something fundamental has changed. Ask yourself, am I reacting to who they are or to what they are carrying? And then respond not to the surface behavior alone, but to the human being beneath it. Because loving well in hard times is not about denying the strain. It is about remembering the person inside it. There is a moment in every difficult season when the question quietly emerges. How long can we do this? Not always out loud, not always dramatically, but internally, both partners may begin to assess their endurance. Loving someone through hardship is not just about compassion or patience. It is about resilience, and resilience is not infinite. This is where the fourth principle becomes essential. You must build shared meaning from the struggle, not just survive it. If hardship feels random, pointless, or isolating, it drains the relationship. But if it becomes something you are facing together, something that shapes you rather than simply depletes you, it can deepen the bond. Suffering that has no narrative exhausts us. Suffering that becomes part of a shared story strengthens us. Think about the difference between saying, "This is ruining us," and saying, "This is testing us." The circumstances may be identical, but the meaning changes the experience. When couples frame difficulty as a joint challenge rather than an individual burden, they move from opposition to alignment. It is no longer you versus me under stress. It becomes us versus the situation. And that subtle psychological shift is powerful. In hard seasons, it is easy to unconsciously compete over who is struggling more. One partner thinks, "You don't understand how much pressure I'm under." The other thinks, "You don't see how much I'm carrying." Both feel unseen, both feel alone. But love in difficult seasons asks a different question. How do we hold this together? That may mean explicitly naming the challenge. This year has stretched us. This diagnosis has shaken us. This uncertainty is heavy. When you name it, you externalize it. You stop embodying the problem and start confronting it side by side. Shared meaning also comes from shared values. Difficult seasons expose priorities. What matters most right now? Stability, health, family, integrity. When couples articulate what they are protecting together, they anchor themselves in purpose. Purpose stabilizes relationships when pleasure is temporarily reduced. It is also important to acknowledge growth. Hardship changes people. It can make you more patient, more honest, more aware of your limits. But growth only strengthens a relationship if it is integrated, not resented. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to us?" consider asking, "Who are we becoming because of this?" That question invites reflection rather than resistance. Of course, building shared meaning does not romanticize suffering. Not every challenge is noble. Some are deeply painful, some leave scars, but even scars tell a story of survival. When couples look back at a difficult chapter and say, "We made it through," they are not celebrating the pain. They are honoring the endurance. There is also something deeply bonding about being chosen during hardship. When your partner stays engaged, stays respectful, stays committed, even when circumstances are not ideal, it reinforces trust. Trust is not built in perfect seasons. It is built when staying would be easier to abandon than to persevere. And yet you remain. At the same time, resilience requires boundaries. Loving through difficulty does not mean tolerating chronic harm, disrespect, or emotional neglect. Shared meaning cannot exist where there is persistent damage without accountability. Resilience is not martyrdom. It is conscious endurance aligned with mutual care. Another aspect of shared meaning is future orientation. Difficult seasons can trap couples in the present struggle. Conversations revolve around immediate stressors. Hope narrows, hope. But even small references to the future. When this settles, let's travel. Next year will look different. We'll laugh about this one day. Create psychological distance from the current strain. Hope does not deny reality, it expands it. And finally, there is gratitude. Not superficial gratitude that ignores pain, but deliberate acknowledgement of effort. Thank you for standing with me. I see how hard you're trying. I know this isn't easy for you either. Gratitude reinforces the sense that you are not suffering alone. When couples can say, "This season was hard, and it revealed our strength," they transform adversity into intimacy. Because ultimately, love is not measured by how you behave when everything is smooth. It is revealed by how you stand together when the ground feels unstable. Difficult seasons are inevitable. Illness, loss, uncertainty, disappointment, they are part of the human condition. The question is not whether they will come. The question is how you will meet them as a couple. Will you fracture under the weight, turning against each other? Or will you anchor into shared meaning, choosing to interpret the hardship as something you face and grow through together? Every difficult season is writing a chapter in your relationship story. The only question is, are you writing it separately or together? Because in the end, love is not just about feeling connected when life is easy. It is about deciding again and again that even in the hardest chapters, we are on the same side. The key is redefining intimacy for the season you are in. Intimacy does not always mean passionate connection or long, soulful conversations. In difficult times, intimacy may look like quiet presence. It may look like sitting beside each other without needing to fix anything. It may look like a brief touch on the shoulder before leaving the house. It may look like a text that says, "I know today is heavy, I'm with you." Small gestures become significant. When energy is limited, grand romantic efforts can feel unrealistic. But micro-connections are sustainable. A deliberate hug that lasts a few seconds longer. Eye contact when your partner speaks, even if the topic is mundane. A simple thank you for something that might otherwise go unnoticed. These moments signal, even in this season, you matter. There is also something deeply reassuring about consistency. In times of stress, predictability creates safety. A nightly check-in, a shared cup of tea, a short walk together. These rituals anchor the relationship when everything else feels unstable. They say, no matter what is happening around us, this is ours. Physical intimacy may fluctuate during difficult seasons, and that can create insecurity. One partner may interpret reduced desire as rejection, but often it is exhaustion or anxiety speaking, not lack of attraction. Instead of pressuring performance, couples can shift toward affection without expectation. Touch that is comforting rather than demanding. Closeness that reassures rather than evaluates. When physical connection is framed as support rather than proof of passion, it becomes accessible even in low-energy periods. Emotional intimacy also requires patience. Stress shortens tempers and reduces attentiveness. You may not have the bandwidth for deep philosophical conversations every night, but you can still create small windows of sharing. Ask one meaningful question. Listen fully for a few minutes without interruption. Reflect back what you heard. These are modest acts, but they prevent emotional drift. It is also important to protect language. In hard seasons, couples can become efficient with each other, focusing only on tasks. Did you pay the bill? What time is the appointment? Don't forget this. The tone becomes managerial. Intimacy requires warmth in language. Even brief affirmations. I appreciate you. I know you're trying. I'm proud of how you're handling this. Remind your partner that they are seen not just as a co-problem solver, but as a valued human being. Playfulness, too, can feel inappropriate when circumstances are serious. But even small moments of humor can relieve pressure. A shared smile, a light comment, a memory of something joyful. Laughter does not disrespect hardship. It provides oxygen. Maintaining intimacy during difficult seasons also means acknowledging that both partners are affected. Even if one person is at the center of the crisis, the other is navigating secondary stress. Creating space to ask, "How are you holding up?" prevents silent burnout. Intimacy thrives when both people feel emotionally included. And here is something subtle but essential. Do not compare your current season to your best season. Comparison breeds disappointment. Instead of asking, "Why aren't we like we used to be?" ask, "How can we stay connected within this reality?" That shift moves you from longing for the past to building resilience in the present. Difficult seasons are not romantic. They are not cinematic, but they are revealing. They show you whether you can create closeness without ideal conditions, whether you can be gentle when stressed, whether you can prioritize connection even when energy is low. And often the intimacy built in hardship is quieter but deeper. It is forged in reliability rather than excitement, in presence rather than performance. So if your relationship feels less passionate in a hard season, do not assume something is broken. Instead, ask, are we still reaching for each other in small ways? Because intimacy does not disappear when life becomes difficult. It changes form. And love matures when you learn how to recognize and protect connection, even when the season is heavy.